Jax is a transgender woman who hasn't realized it yet. I know you might want to laugh at first. Gooseworks' writing within the amazing digital circus is stellar at delivering lol random laughable jokes.
What you doing there, Jax?
Have I ever told you how it's my dream to get eaten by you?
Hilarious. Until you realize that the beginning imagery of Jax's abstraction sequence resembles an endless pull into Kane's mouth. Kane saying not to hurt Bubbles' feelings as a disguise for his own is funny until you realize they may literally be mentally and physically connected somehow. So on and so on. Realizing that Jax is a woman started with a joke for me. The man in a maid dress scenario is popular across all fandom. Honestly, the cross-dressing man is popular across all fandom. When Untitled released, my friend said she thought the maid dress bit was stupid and cliche, taking it at face value as a joke or fan service moment. I remember responding, I think it was actually meant to show Jax has issues with masculinity. It could be exploration of toxic masculinity, being unable to accept that being feminine is okay, and becoming an aggressor simply because of a desire to live up to masculine standards. I assumed it was only about Jax's insecurity and moved on, until I saw Gooseworks' tweet. For anyone who didn't know, Gooseworks, the creator of Digital Circus, is a trans woman herself, and in a response to an anon on Twitter asking which character she relates to most, she said Jax, even saying Jax is her self-insert elsewhere. I doubt she means this literally. If you've seen her online, she's known to be sarcastic and vaguely lie about her own show quite often. Gooseworks is known to joke, but she's also known to spoil the truth and get away with it right before our eyes. Jax is a cruel, self hating, masking pain with humor, living with survivor's guilt, confirmed to be suicidal, struggling to comprehend the weight of bullying people, dealing with the difficulty of being in the circus. He's mourning, he's insecure, he has unknown reasons he refuses to go back to the real world, he's dissociating, he has trauma involving a car and corn, something we don't know yet. I'm not going to discuss the entire complex character of Jax in this video, but what I do want to make clear is that this isn't one of those instances where people use queer readings to erase the depth of other aspects of someone's character. I believe the scenes and character struggles can represent multiple things at once. I think that this realization I've had about Jax actually makes the overall character much deeper. From the first episode, Jax is shown to harass Gangle. She's insecure, fragile, and generally submissive, something Jax takes full advantage of. Gangle is acknowledged to be the main victim of Jax, Ragatha and Zooble being second in line, and a lesser amount of harassment thrown Pomni's way. It's potentially notable that Jax is closest with Pomni when engaging in a violent and masculine associated game with guns, only to reject her again when she embraces him with a feminine and vulnerable hug. With the male cast, Jax only makes comments about Kinger's mental state and is known to completely fear Kane, who arguably isn't really a male at all if you really think about it. Gooseworks was directly asked about Jax targeting girls on Tumblr and answered that he has issues he hasn't worked out with himself yet. Like I theorize, Jax has issues with masculinity and femininity, but what kind? Why? Because of this post, we know that Jax's issues regarding femininity are intentional. His idea that feminine equals bad and masculine equals good. And we know Jax purposefully puts up a tough guy act in order to seem tougher than they really are in reality. That Jax hates to be seen as cringe and judged. So, what are Jax's real interests? I believe that Jax's interests in things such as violence, chaos, and pulling pranks are all a part of the act. Misbehavior in order to set cognitive dissonance with the idea that they could really be trapped in the circus. On the other hand, we have some hints of what other things Jax might be interested in, other than Breaking Bad and Creep by Radiohead.
Slice of life animes are the worst ones. It's embarrassing.
I love how these lines indirectly call attention to the fact that Jax watches anime, and has to have seen Slice of Life in order to know what they're talking about, possibly saying it's embarrassing just as a way to make fun of Gangle. Gooseworks also shared that Jax had a brief obsession with Ariel as a child, and when asked if Jax likes bunnies, Gooseworks simply responded, Jax likes a lot of things he would never admit. Also sharing that there are many things Jax likes that he won't allow Gooseworks to tell anyone. Despite Jax's constant assertion that femininity and feminine things are bad or stupid, there's evidence to support that Jax himself enjoys and partakes in these things. So, why fight it? Why is Jax unable to accept these things about himself? It's not just that Jax is afraid of what others think, it's that Jax is disgusted with himself too.
God, you look stupid.
Untitled is an episode about Jax, partially. Of course, other aspects of Jax take forefront in the revealing stargazing scene. However, the subtext, the question we're left with, comes back to Jax's relationship with gender.
Think we all look weird.
Excuse you, this is what peak male performance looks like. My ears and tail are kind of the pinnacle of masculinity.
You don't have a tail.
What are you talking about? Yes, I do. What the? Where's my tail? How long have I not had my tail?
I have never seen you with a tail.
I think it's really interesting that Jax specifically relates his bunny form to masculinity. Honestly, I know it's a joke about how attractive a digital rabbit body would be realistically. Don't argue with me in the comments, Simps. It's this is not a normal thing to be attracted to. But it could also be a play on a rabbit's general association with femininity, being frail, cute, oh, forgive me, Lord, oh, I'm a good girl, all that sort of stuff. And Jax cites one of the only body parts he doesn't have and didn't know he was even missing as the pinnacle of masculinity. It's unclear to me, actually. It's not been proven one way or the other why Jax lost his tail. But I think it has something to do with vulnerability. It's brought up in the first scene Jax truly lets his guard down with someone else, and then it reappears in the violent masculine game of shooting each other, and Jax suddenly becomes cold and distant again at the end of that episode. The non-feeling pinnacle of masculinity he thinks he needs to be. The digital circus makes a reference of the mind files of the players. It's curious why Jax would be put in a feminine associated creature's body, or why his one claim to masculinity, joke or not, isn't even always there. And that's scary to Jax.
When would that have even...
With a trans femme creator and queer characters involved, Digital Circuits is not a show to shy away from tackling themes about gender and sexuality. Despite dysphoria and identity involving queerness being a big part of Zooble's character, they only ever explain their queer identity in metaphor. I notice it's funny that Jax is actually the character that brings up gender and queerness explicitly the most. What I think is most key is when Jax and Zooble interact together. I mean, come on guys, gay versus gay hater, epic freaking rap battles of history. Well, I literally cannot show you better than the show itself.
Yeah, this was one of my suggestions. I worked at a bar briefly. I like making drinks.
That sounds fitting for you.
I know there's an implication there, but I can't be f***ed to figure it out.
So,
Zooble says this line because he knows it's some sort of microaggression, and not gonna lie, I also knew it was a microaggression, but didn't know why. Gay bars, gay bartenders are a thing. Like, I don't know, someone smarter than me say it in the comments. But the point is, it's a queer joke because Jax wouldn't make an association about anything else about Zooble, really.
Yeah, I was a tattoo artist for a couple years.
a bartender and a tattoo artist? You're killing me here, Zooby.
What do you mean when you say that? Do you have, like, an actual point, or are you just talking?
I'm just having fun. I forgot you hate fun.
Fun isn't the thing I hate.
This makes it clear it's a queer joke because the gay tattoo artist is a stereotype I actually understand and commonly see. And I love how Zooble calls out Jax here too. Jax continues to kind of set people up to fight or get emotional here, and Zooble is the only one to recognize and try to stop it. And so they come back for revenge in one very revealing scene.
Ah, she's cool. Wait, what's that? What the heck? Who did this? You!
Jax, you're up to bat.
I can't, don't wanna, why, look, why this though?
Seems fitting for you, though. I figured you'd be into this.
What does that mean? What's that supposed to mean?
I'm just having fun. I forgot you hate fun.
Sound familiar? It's because it is. Speaking on this scene, a fan and Goose had this interaction on Tumblr. Quite interesting. Take a look. So this user says that they loved the scene, but they really felt bad for Jax because it must have been really embarrassing, demeaning, all that sort of stuff. And Gooseworks responded, I don't think Zooble would be that cruel. They've got a different agenda. Goose explicitly stated that Zooble didn't come up with this idea to humiliate Jax. They have a different agenda. Yes, they wanted to impress their anime-obsessed kawaii girlfriend, of course, but they didn't do it to make Jax uncomfortable. Zooble is highly empathetic and intuitive. They likely know of Jax's insecurities about masculinity and the mask that Jax wears for hours at a time. So they wanted to push Jax to be more okay being feminine, vulnerable, not just for the benefit of others or revenge, but for the benefit of Jax himself. She recognizes that Jax needs to embrace more femininity, and Jax, on the other hand, completely rejects it.
I don't want to wear this!
I have never seen you this upset about something.
Jax, bat.
I'm gonna kill you when this is over. Well, guess there's no more ball. I'm not doing this anymore.
Wait, Jax, what a...
Whoops, I missed. Oh darn, I'm out.
Having fun?
Oh, you know it.
So, you wanna talk about that?
I'm in a maid outfit, what do you think?
Completely unwilling and incapable to hold the funny one facade like usual. Zooble states themselves, I've never seen you this upset about something. We know that Jax can dish out jokes but can't take them, but this specifically is just a dress, honestly, and eyeliner that slays. This is what Jax despises the most, and Zooble, the dysphoria character, is the one to recognize and push Jax into this. It's also worth noting, Zooble makes the association with queerness on purpose, throwing back the parallel lines in Jax's face to make it clear that queerness is the point. I thought you'd be into this. And then of course Jax responds, what's that supposed to mean? But so genuinely, so terrified about what that could mean about his perception and just being unwilling to be seen that way. Jax is also embarrassed of his evil clone. Like I would be if it was evil Jax. But I mean, evil Jax is also arguably more feminine and a more open type of person. The type of person Jax despises very clearly. And it's worth mentioning that Jax gobbles him the same way he does with the meat earlier.
Ah, delicious meat!
And meat has a societal association with masculinity and being manly for some reason. Like, you gotta be a lion, and I don't know, just like, you have to tear meat if you want to be a man. And Jax also hates being a vegan, something seen as too woke, girly, feminine, Another interesting parallel that we can draw information about Jax from is actually a parallel with Ragatha within the baseball adventure. When Ragatha is up to bat with evil Ragatha, they say,
Hello, stupid Gatha! I hope you're ready to get completely annihilated! Nobody loves you and you're going to die someday!
and this is really important because as the viewers, we know that evil Ragatha is saying real Ragatha's actual fears. It's not just a random, like, joke. And this is probably because Kane has the mind files, he's able to, reflect the reality of what's in their minds. After the maid dress scene, though, when Jax is most upset, Jax faces against evil Jax. And note that these two scenes are also framed the exact same way, just on opposite ends. Also, in the episode, Gooseworks made specifically to be about both Ragatha and Jax. What's super interesting about this parallel that a lot of people miss is that if evil Ragatha voiced Ragatha's real fears, it's likely true about Jax's scene as well, especially with the parallel composition.
Let's see what you're made of.
Shut up!
Don't worry, I think you look good.
I don't want to hear that! I want you dead!
And what's really interesting is that if that's the case, evil Jax isn't saying, oh, you look too feminine, you look too girly, you look too weak, you look bad. The fear being reflected in Jax would be that Jax actually looks good. Some part of him fits into this role. That's the fear. A bit of a stretch, but I think that Jax saying, I want you dead, could also be a reference to rejecting the part of him that evil Jax reflects deep down. The first episode meant to uncover Jax's character, and these are all the main plot points. Digital Circus isn't about nothing. It's meant to be examined, read between the lines, as if real people interacted. They're not going to come out and say Jax is transgender, but holy shit. There's a commonly spoken about canon event for trans femmes where they hyper-masculinize themselves to reject their identity, only to later accept themselves. They'll cut their hair, act tough, insist their identity is purely masculine, and in doing so, often resort to being unlikable and difficult to be around. Jax's character is the perfect embodiment of this transitional period. His entire character struggle revolves around him not being able to be his true self, forcing himself into a fictitious role that, as a result, literally just makes him more aggressive to those around him. If you're in the queer community, you might be familiar with the term egg. The term means a transgender individual who hasn't realized that they are transgender. So the stereotype of the resistant trans femme would be a notable example of an egg. You know what line always stood out to me in Digital Circus?
Oh, say.
But you know what else did?
I'm just a misunderstood little chicken fetus in an egg that needs to be cracked open. Well, I am not.
This line, I just couldn't put my finger on why exactly Jax used this metaphor. It kind of seemed like it came out of nowhere, but all the word choices in Digital Circus usually end up being quite important, honestly. I think it's a little bit more than a coincidence that this particular metaphor was used when it's specifically tied to this role in the transgender community. It's obviously a term that Gooseworks would know about. Alright, you guys gotta stick with me on this one, but the inside of Jax also kind of looks like egg yolk. I don't know if it's intentional, and, like, honestly, I don't know if this episode is implying that the yellow underneath, like, the peeled Jax. I don't know if the peeled Jax is the true Jax and he's, like, in a suit, or if it's just purely a metaphor in the torture sequence. But I found this connection to be striking, alongside the fact that the show just doesn't really use random imagery that doesn't connect very often. It's usually played off as some kind of joke and then is actually important. Not to mention, we all know Jax is afraid of corn for some unknown reason. I mean, it's actually not an unknown reason. When I'm sorry. When Jax describes the fear, he says,
Well, I don't know. It's got a bunch of little pods on it. Looks kind of like an egg sac or something. It's gross. Makes my skin crawl.
Interesting.
I'm just gonna let that sink in. I'm gonna let the sink back out. I shouldn't really, I shouldn't be inviting strangers into my home. But on the other hand, the thing that Jax said about being afraid of something that looks like an egg, yeah. Jax is related to a chicken fetus in an egg, looks like an egg being broken open in his torture sequence, and is deathly afraid of corn as like a quirky thing about him because it looks like an egg sac. It quite literally is just too many factors to be a coincidence at this point, especially with the writing style and metaphor style that is consistently used throughout the show. And honestly, like, if this whole egg motif isn't about the transgender term, what is it about? You tell me. It's not random that this much egg stuff is going on. And if that wasn't enough, someone pointed out that the Chinese room joke, the actual words that they pass back and forth says egg and then says something like pain. I was able to use Google Translate to like half-ass confirm, but someone more experienced, you tell me in the comments after June 4th when I have already seen the finale with no spoil. Don't spoil in the comments, by the way. I'm not gonna look at the comments until I see this in theaters on the exact day, so shut. So without further ado, nail in the coffin. Nail in the coffin. The beach episode scene, actually. I know.
Go on.
Aren't you supposed to be miserable about your ability to choose your own body or something?
Aren't you supposed to be causing trouble for everyone? I've been starting to think that maybe the ability to change is fine. Not needing to commit to one thing all the time.
How about that?
Jax isn't only trying to make fun of Zooble here. Jax is also, overall, as a character, shown to specifically cope through bullying the other members of the circus, not just pointing at their own insecurities, but projecting his. Jax isn't just throwing out another random queerphobic joke. Jax is jealous of the ability to choose your own body. Despite this gimmick being Zooble's hell, Jax sees this option as something positive, or at least laughable, to be considered bad. And my goat Zooble, being an empath, recognizes this in Jax after Jax turns away resigned.
And if I do still have problems, I talk about them with the people I trust.
Good thing I don't have any problems then.
Where are you going?
Anywhere you losers won't yap my ear off.
Zooble purposefully pauses and gives healing advice regarding body image and self-exploration and acceptance, despite these two fully hating each other in every way and having nothing but animosity and a bad history. Zooble is still willing to help Jax with whatever feelings he has, like the maid scene before. I don't think that this is a random choice of forgiveness and wanting the best for Jax. I think that this is because Zooble, the character who notably struggles with dysphoria, sees themselves in Jax and knows how hard it can be to have those struggles and what it would be like to reject themselves. Jax once again rejects this offer of advice, putting the mask up despite it being worn down. Zooble presses once again, purposefully trying to communicate this message to Jax. I just found it so incredibly solid and non-refusable that this conversation regarding identity and body and the ability to change it, with Zooble leading and Jax listening, isn't anything less than confirming that Jax is a trans woman and Zooble knows whether Jax is willing to accept this or not. Not to mention Jax immediately retreating to her room, where she begins to accept abstraction. Wouldn't it be weird? The last conversation she ever had in life being a refusal to engage with the idea that she could ever accept herself as she is and reveal herself to the people around her. If it hadn't been for Pomni, that would have been Jax's final moments, rejecting herself for the final time. Not to mention, in what looks like a little girl's room. Again, each of the rooms in the digital circus reflect the character's fears. For example, Zooble's room is filled with mirrors because they struggle with image. So, what is scary to Jax about a little girl's room? Exactly. Personally, this is not something you can unconvince me on. Even if it's unintentional, the alignment is beyond insane here. And I think it's a little funny to imply that it's just impossible for this to be on purpose when the show is quite literally created by a trans woman who says she sees herself in Jax most out of any other character in the show. Also, I'm not even done. I have a pile of non fully convincible evidence that I'm just going to put here on a speeder before I move into discussion about the evidence I presented already. Here we go. When asked if Jax was a Tumblr sexy man, Gooseworks said that it would be funny considering what happens in the series. What else could that mean? Jax's room is, contains the trans colors in it. See the vision. Jax abstracts with trans colors in her eyes. Yeah, yeah. The Spudsies name tag is listed as I don't care for Jax. Gooseworks often draws Jax taking many drugs, but there's this very prominent one of her taking progesterone. Goose has a notable obsession with Jax in a maid dress, and this popular drawing of Jax quite feminine for Halloween. Just for fun, I wanted to include the shirt of Jax's iconic quote, which is "You go, girl." Get it? Cause she's a girl. This advertising. Jax as a character in general was initially planned to be a girl. Pomni was also originally going to be a boy. They just swapped. This part where Jax says ladies first and then immediately goes up the escalator first. Again, just going to reiterate that bunnies are associated with girls and bring up the note about Cain making their bodies based on mind files again. And bunnies are also associated with eggs often as well. This Gooseworks liking these posts of Jax in very feminine outfit. The fact that in the torture sequence regarding Jax's biggest fear, essentially, is revealed to be revealing herself, but it's done by taking away both the ears and tail, if that's a fake part of her, which it's the specific part she called the pinnacle of masculinity. That's about it, to be honest. I'm just trying to get the script done before the finale comes out at this point. So just let me know if I miss anything else. I would love to know. I love her, so alongside that, I wanted to talk about other counter arguments and doubts I have in this theory, as well as my literal only doubts from two things. Number one, specifically the fact that Goose made Jax to fulfill her own desires. She said this, she's very passionate about Jax online. You can go deep dive on Tumblr if you want to see it for yourself. She loves, loves this character. And I'm unsure if Goose actually also likes women, so I wonder if the desire is only based in the concept of a man cross dressing or, being feminine or something like that. Number two, the fact that Gooseworks has actually mentioned this headcanon before regarding some drama that I believe happened on Reddit, where someone posting about this theory started spamming it and it annoyed people, resulting in some people spreading transphobia regarding the theory. Goose stepped in to some degree. I really don't care to learn all about the drama at all. I'm just noting that this theory has been acknowledged by Goose once, and because of this, she says she likes it, but it does make me question whether she's willing to talk about it because she could be talking about it just as a cop out to make us think like, "Oh, it's not real." Um she's very elusive about everything. So it does make me question the theory that she mentioned it despite not confirming or denying it, but she does like it. I also want to run down the counter arguments against this theory as well. By the way, it's commonly referred to as the Daisy theory, Daisy being the trans femme fan name given to Jax. It's kind of literally only because they sang Daisy Bell one time. Honestly, I don't really like this name or the name or that it, spread to be the name of the theory. Some people say Jazz. I'd say that's the most second popular, you know, name for Jax after transitioning. I personally think Jax would just keep her name. I don't see anything wrong with her being named Jax, but it's a very popular way of referring to trans femme Jax. But that's besides the point. One counter argument to trans femme Jax is that Jax is actually transmasculine, and I am completely against fighting over headcanons, as that's just not the point of why we're here. And a true trans femme Jax truther never speaks ill of a trans mask Jax truther. But I will say this. The theory is mainly based in the trans themes of Jack's character we discussed, not being able to accept herself and forcing being the pinnacle of masculinity. I have no ill will towards the people who enjoy transmas Jax. I don't think they're stupid or that they shouldn't be allowed to have this headcanon or anything. But I will say I personally believe that this is proven false, if not from this exact tweet. I kept saying Twitter instead of Tumblr in this. Just look at the picture. You guys know what that is. You're familiar. Specifically because what Goose said about the intentions of Zooble just make it so that it really just doesn't make sense for Zooble to have done this in a positive way for a trans mask Jax, unless it's some sort of arc about a trans mask person accepting their femininity, and that could be a valid idea to explore. It just makes so much less sense, really. There's less evidence since none of the egg metaphors or comments or themes would translate to this theory as well. Ultimately, in that way, because Jax's character is entirely centered around, with this theory, the themes of Jax not accepting themselves make a lot less sense as well. Paired with the concept that Jax would be fully transitioned and does live with the identity that they want to be. So, personally, the theory doesn't hold much weight for me, but I will not judge people who choose to like it. It's just that with Jax's character being negative and specifically being, you know, centered around not fully accepting himself, I just don't see how someone who has accepted themselves really fits into that. And the most common thing said against the trans femjax theory recently is this simply cannot be true because it's just not a relevant plot point, and there's no way that we will have time to confirm it in the finale. So, yeah, I guess that's it, guys. I guess she's not a woman. I give up. And to that I say, there definitely is time. Someone pointed out on Tumblr that Kane's death happens within like 1 minute. I'm pretty sure they would have time to confirm Jax is a trans woman in a subtle way. But on that note, I don't think that that speculation comes from nowhere. In fact, moving forward with this theory, I've got to be honest, I don't think that this theory is going to be confirmed at all or ever. Gooseworks says openly that her mentality towards confirming gender and sexuality or any headcanons for characters, likely because of fan backlash, is just that she won't say anything about it. I believe she's the type of person to just not confirm anything outright. She wants you to dig for things. She wants you to take away what you are going to take away, regardless if it's said out loud or not. And I think that that's a brilliant way of going about it. For example, spoilers for I Saw the TV Glow. It centers around themes of not accepting your trans femme identity. With the main character, it never said outright that she's a trans woman or that that reality is like the one true theory. Honestly, no matter what happens in the finale, I'm still going to believe this theory. It's not disproven if it's just never stated out loud, and I heavily do not think that the show would ever say it in a direct way. And if it does, I'll be taken by surprise, to be honest. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean this theory holds no weight. I think this theory makes the show so much deeper in terms of Jax's character, in the very least, and we'll be able to watch this looking back at Jax's character, also including the aspects of transness included, and I think that is so fun and interesting, and writing worth being celebrated. But also, I don't expect a good ending for Jax, and in a bad ending for Jax, I believe it would end similarly to the aforementioned movie, so I don't think that Jax would ever fully even accept this, to be honest. I don't know what's gonna happen in the end, but I I don't expect any good things for Jax, which would be ultimately confirming this. I want to do one more examination and comment on Jax's character with this transness involved. As referenced earlier, there have been some heavily transphobic responses, and the majority of the fandom doesn't really engage with this theory or believe it, even if they support it from the sidelines. This reaction made me curious. When fandom culture has been so progressive with queerness for the most part for decades, it honestly surprised me that most people were not immediately in on this theory. There are so many characters that come to mind that are really, really popular trans masculine headcanons that are just kind of widely accepted as fact by like everyone in the fandom for the most part. And all of them are just as popular, if not less popular, than Jax at this point. I just think it's weird that this theory isn't celebrated as much as these people who like have so much less evidence and often aren't even written by trans people to begin with. Many people reject the idea that Jax could be a woman because they feel misogynistic towards that idea. And on the other end, they don't want to see this character as trans unless it's validating the gender that they already are, which is really curious to me. Doesn't allyship to the trans community rely on the idea that we should be open to people we know revealing their true identities even when we wouldn't have expected them before? To be ready for people's identities to change and adapt to something new. It's why we don't assume people's gender. It's like this is like basic stuff. I think that people can get so caught in the idea of progressiveness that they actually hold themselves back from accepting trans people as they could, because everyone accepts someone who's trans until you actually watch them transition, and you actually have to change and cope and accommodate with their new identity when you knew them previously as someone else. Not to mention the other side of fandom culture that just worships male characters, whether morally ambiguous or not. And I feel like that creates a culture and environment where people have something to lose if the character is anything other than male, because how will they be attracted to them if they aren't male? How would they be a Tumblr sexy man if they aren't male? How will this character be as complex and misunderstood as the audience wants them to be if they're not the gender they want them to be, which is like anything other than a woman? It made me sad to see this too, because it shows that even though people want to support trans people, for some reason it doesn't go both ways. It has to be a palatable form of transness where their identity is already locked in and fully transitioned, and they fully pass with just the label as trans. Where ultimately their struggle of being trans is mainly left behind. A cis person with the label of trans, essentially. I'm not saying people who have transitioned and passed aren't valid or aren't trans. I'm just saying that there's a noticeable lack of representation for people who do not pass or haven't even transitioned yet, or people who haven't even realized they're trans within the series. The only example of that I can think of is in The Umbrella Academy, and it's literally only because the real actor realized he was trans. All of these notable examples in the same field of representation as Jax have already fully transitioned and passed in a way where the audience doesn't have to question their femininity, masculinity, or androgyny. The way that it's easiest for cis people to validate. I guess what I'm saying is that if Jax is a trans woman, that's incredible. It's an area we don't see explored often outside of this movie. And honestly, it could do miles for trans representation. A trans woman reflecting this experience herself, like honestly, like the Matrix, it's something people don't see often. A part of trans identity that isn't as palatable to cis audiences, that doesn't try to make itself acceptable as possible. Not only that, on top of everything, Jax isn't even a good person, and I don't think that that's a bad thing in regards to trans representation. It's not like this theory is a fact, but honestly, if Jax isn't purposefully a transgender woman, which I will say I don't think we will ever get confirmed once again, I just want to say if that's not the case, I want to see a character like Trans Femme Jack. I want to see characters who realize they're trans and transition. I want to see characters who don't fully pass, who aren't perfect cookie cutter people who struggle with their identity, who fight against it, trans or queer without ever even fully revealing its trans representation. Trans representation has a long way to go, and I'd love to see a lot more trans films in general. Most of all, I'd like trans representation to show the people the trans community actually holds instead of people who are just trying to get cis and uncaring people's sympathy and acceptance. And characters who don't uphold unrealistic ideals of transitioning for everyone or being the perfect person with a swift journey with their identity and presentation. Trans Femme Jax is the love of my life. She's so beautiful. She deserves the world. She does actually deserve to die, like, completely alone, buried, be in hell, die again, just never ever come back to life. Probably strip limb from limb at some point, eaten by, I don't know, just people. But you get what I mean. In another life, she could realize she's trans and be happy. I know I'm choosing to be happy by ignoring the leaks this fandom has made. I don't think it's the worst ever, but the drama outside the show itself is really obnoxious. Not including the racist stuff. I do think we should take that very seriously. But I've just decided, eh, who cares? That's exactly how I'm going in. And I'm just going to talk about what I like about the show and what I've been thinking about the show. Of course, this isn't the only thing I've been thinking, but I had the most fun digging this up and putting this out there when I saw no one was really talking about this in the YouTube space. And even if you guys aren't convinced at the end of this video, I really hope that you continue to dive into the text around you and look into different shows and what they say about gender and identity, and please start making trans headcanons of characters that aren't already trans or aren't already transitioned. Like, it's awesome, guys. And most of all, let's enjoy ourselves in this finale when it comes out. Don't be afraid to enjoy things and keep your head at ease when the chronically online, just dumb stuff comes around. It really is obnoxious. It really is. Because it's just too much and we don't have to care. And I'm really excited to show up, and I hope you guys are too. Thank you for watching. This was my first, like, ever video like this, so thanks. And I can't wait for the finale. Jax is a woman, goodbye.
There's nothing more to me. So please, just stop looking.